Well, good evening. I've been telling you I was going to show you around the shelf layout for quite some time. It's probably about time I did. Come on, let's have a look. Now then, what do we have here? Well, the very first thing is it's supposed to be a representation of an industrial site. There is a coal mine at one end, and this thing was incredibly difficult to find and is as fragile as anything. There's a break in one of the legs there, I believe. I had dreams of making the wheels turn. The winding house is here. It's a Metcalf kit. Lighting, no coal dust anywhere. We've got to solve that. A couple of things I do like about it. I love the water in the tank. Can be achieved with just a piece of plastic. There goes the back scene. Yes. I've talked a couple of times about this building, this warehouse, very narrow building, nicely lit. You look through the windows, there's a big engineering thing going on in there. Map on the wall there. A furnace or something in that one. Some kind of schematic there. These are all just me thumbing through a magazine and cutting pictures out and sticking them onto the back wall. A little bit of light leak here and there. Obviously, anybody that's into model railway construction for any length of time is going to recognize some of the parts. This is an island platform. Let me show you. Something like that, or perhaps it was something like this. Not sure why I had extra, but I did. I did manage to give the inside of the entrance a little bit of depth. And again, I have no idea where I found the tile work, but it was in the scrap drawer. This level here, this is under brick. This is under platform brick paper, very similar to what would have gone here. Where is the space? Here in the past. This is not the same stuff, but very similar. Little bit of street lighting going on. I intentionally chose the cold blue for the warehouse to try and impersonate fluorescent lighting, but I think that was a mistake in the entrance building. Now, it's not usual to have a train coming through that hole in the front, but on a shelf I couldn't think of another way of having a scenic break, and it does kind of look fun. It's an old factory entrance or something, but there's a secret. Very similar to this building at the other end and these buildings. How do you get the lights in there? And I'm going to show you that. But first, let me just quickly describe the layout. Very simple, double pickle fork. The main line is about, I don't know, 6 inches long or something. Goes from this point to that point. That's it. 2 longish sidings going that way. In through the factory entrance, and then 2 sidings there heading to the coal mine. One stops at the, I guess the shaft, that would have to be, wouldn't it? The shaft entrance. They don't go beyond there and the doors stay closed. And the other goes beyond. Before I get to how the automation of the running of the little layout works, let me show you how the lighting works. And again, I think this building would have been far better with warm white lights. Let's see if this lifts off. It does. Now then, there's the building. Big hole cut in the bottom, carved in the bottom. And simply the lights stay on the layout, and I can unplug them. They just unplug. You see that? So I will eventually change those. These are big clunky cold white LEDs. I guess I must have had a few dozen of them. but using a standard plug and socket. So all over this layout, let me just take this building off too. There you go, another one there. So I could unplug that one and it would plug into this one and light up. So in a sense, the buildings are plug and play. Not quite as simple as that, because you've of course got to get the angle right and so on. But that's how it's done. You just have to thread. He says, making it sound simple. You have to thread the lights back in through the building. And trying to do that one-handed with the wiggle is going to be interesting. Again, this one, hole in the bottom. Drop the building over the top. Now this end, big hole in the board. What was that for? Well, underneath here was a mirror. It wasn't effective. And in there was a canal boat. Now, tiny basin, and there was no chance of it ever getting around the corner. The idea was this was heading off scene, so somehow I was going to scenic break this. I stopped because I've made a mistake. The whole layout is about, I think, 4 inches too long from the place it was supposed to sit. So it shouldn't be too difficult to shorten, but that's what I was on. All of this, there's 6 connections on the front. Let me just tell you what they are. 2 of them are for lighting, 2 of them are for track power, and another 2 are for the electronic control. The track power doesn't go straight to the track, it goes through a relay. Why am I using different supply for the electronics and the track power? Well, because it's nominally different voltages and I wanted to be able to play with the speed of the trains first. Another problem, the wiring on DC layouts on shuttles, you have to get the positive and negative the right way round, even though it's going to flip. Otherwise the train goes the wrong way. And the locomotives, the first 2 locomotives I used were second-hand and were wired backwards. And I just assumed they were correct. And so now when I try to use something like this little fella, or the black one you've seen me using a number of times in trials, they go the wrong way. So I've got to either correct the layout or mess up even more locomotives. I'll correct the layout. Couple of little things. So this end then, the idea is there's a loading dock, and the train pulls in here and stops. It's all automatic. How does it work? There's no diodes in the track. Ooh. It's got this thing going on, infrared sensors. There's 4 of them. I don't know where the one over the back is. It's been too long, but it's there somewhere. I'll show you the ones up here. Points are controlled with a thunk. So the points change automatically. And at this end, one of the infrared sensors is there, and the other one will be behind this train, I expect, because yes, there it is. It hasn't been disguised in any way. So essentially what's happening is that there is ultraviolet or infrared, I don't know what it is. If it were anything special, the camera would see it usually. So it's just shining a beam of light between the 2, and when the train comes in there you can see it. You see my finger there? See the violet on my finger? I cannot see that in real life. So that's the light source, ultraviolet, clearly. The camera can see it, human eye cannot, and then that light goes up to this little sensor. So once a train gets in the way of that, the circuit all triggers. Once it triggers, there's a magic electronic panel underneath, under here somewhere. And that's the biggest mistake I made, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. So 4 sidings, 1 very short main line, as it were. You can have up to 3 locomotives. Yeah, so you can have 1, 2, or 3 locomotives on this thing. First locomotive, let's put them on. I'm not going to put locos up there. Give me 1 second. Now let's see if I can trigger this whole thing with wagons instead of locomotives. So there's clearly 1 in that siding and 1 in this. I've got 3 on the layout. So I'm moving this out of the one circuit. It's going across the points. It'll come down here, and the sensor at the end of the platform will realize it's there. It's got there, it's stopped. And you heard the thunk. And now, let's see what it's done. Okay, it said that this train can go back again. So here we go. And we're gonna shove it through the hole. Okay, so it's going down a different siding. And it's gone past the sensor. Past the sensor, stay there. Now you hear another thunk. So the circuit is self-sensing, and it makes an assumption that there's either 1, 2, or 3 trains on the layout, and it has to find them. Okay, so I've put a locomotive on the track, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so the locomotive, there are 2 locomotives on the circuit right now. This one not behaving very well, but it's gone past the sensor. Points are changing. And now this one here should run. Doesn't want to. So I've got the layout down on the floor, and we'll give you the eye of God view. These sockets are clearly the same, and they're for lighting. Not sure I'd do that again, but it was an idea I tried. A lot of little street lights along the way. They'll be hooked to the same circuit. Gravel pile on the end of the track instead of buffers. Clever, yeah. So there's the other siding. This, you might remember, was our stretcher scene. The rails are glued down. Just these guys are working on a tub, which we're just giving a hint that it might have come off the end there. All the way down, a couple more miners talking to each other. I don't think we've ever seen these guys, and the reason is there's always been a train parked in front of them. We're now heading towards the first point. There it is. The factory building went across there. That street light was right outside it. Straight to the second point. Little bit of track glued down there. Now what's going on here? Oh, I see. This was an old piece of plastic. I think it's part of a barrier, and there's a welding team working there. They're glued on. One of the sensors there, heading off to a little bit of a overgrown end of the siding, off to the basin for the narrowboats. Now, let's flip it over and have a look on the other side. Okay, we're going to start all the way at this end. This light, this connection here is to one of those street lights, and there'll be a number of those. Socket for lighting. I prefer the big meaty than these tiny ones, but it all comes along this side. Another street light there, and then we get to the first sensor, so that'll be the infrared. It's not infrared, it's ultraviolet, because we just saw it on the camera, but that's where the first one is. And then we come further down, there's another street light there, and as we go along each time, more and more cables. Another pair of sensors there, and they all come over to this side. Another street light there. All of these cables, more and more cables. These two are the only well, it's not really a casualty, but the warehouse sat above the other side of this. That is not an all the way through hole. That's how it hooks onto the wall. There's a bunch of, I'll show you those in a minute, but a bunch of hooks that go into those holes. And because of this aluminium profile, these wires here just went diagonally through, and the warehouse glues to the other end of those. So these hooks then, there's several of them along the wall here, are intended to hold the shelf layout wherever it ends up. So that's how it was supposed to stay up. More and more cables. Somewhere there's a point motor too. I'm not seeing it. But anyway, it's the other side of there. There it is. And now more and more cables. And oh my word, ta-da! That's the circuit board. And then we go off the other end, and I'll switch you off and turn you around so you can see. The core issue is I'm crawling around on my knees. So there's all of the connections out to the big wide world. The canal basin, socket, sensor, all the way up until we get more or less into the middle of the board. And then there's this. Now, I won't ever need access to that. Of course I won't. And so I buried it underneath the shelf. Well, of course you do need access to it. There's nothing much to do on there, but there is a control. And every time there's a control, you know you're going to need access to it. So the pile of cables coming in there are sensors and ultraviolet light. And then this side, point motors. So the track supply comes in here, will be controlled by the microprocessor there, and then we'll clunk these relays, and simply comes out here. Essentially what that does is that the circuit is really doing what I was doing the other day with the battery, flipping it over and back. The difference with this circuit is that as the sensors tell this microprocessor, oh, a train has gone by, it slows down or reduces the volts going onto these this pair here, so that the train comes to a more gentle stop. So that's what all that's about. But do you see, hiding it under the board probably wasn't the brightest thing I ever did. Another issue with these cables here. In theory, they just tuck under there and they're fine, but they're low enough once this wood warped that trains going underneath would snag on that. So that's another little issue. I would have done a lot better to turn this way instead of that way. And I would have also done a lot better not to have joins right in the middle, however much I've gone back and tried to bodge strengthening pieces which didn't work. I'll show you. I'm just going to put a little bit of weight on it. Do you see the flex? So that's why it's warping. We've got some work to do, but that's what this circuit is. And I'm not sure that it's a good idea having it upside down underneath something when there is, even if there is just one thing you need access to. Do you see that little button there? That's something to push. Yeah. And I made the assumption that I would be able to find it and push it with this upside down. Ian, you're a dummy. All right, so that's what it is. Just a very brief overview of the shelf layout there. Can you see how much work I've got to do? So now what we have up here is all of the rolling stock from the shelf layout. Lovely little locomotive there, isn't it? It's never run on the shelf layout, but that's what it's for. And I'm guessing that one's going to end up there too. The original locomotives were that one. This one came a little later. Oh, and there's the other one of the originals there. That's so that one and this one were both wired backwards. Who knew? So now I'm going to have to reverse that one, and the little green one if I'm going to use it again. But this one, that one, and this one will be the locomotives of choice, I think. Reluctant. That's my test engine I use on the bench. So may find something else. I do have another one of those. You might remember me having to fix it before it ever did anything. Right. The next decision will be, do I completely rebuild it, finding a new baseboard and everything, or do I manage to get the shelf shortened just a little bit and make it work? We'll see, but we'll be on that in the next week or two. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Really do appreciate it. And I hope I haven't been too rambly as I've dismantled and left, you can't see, hold on, and left stuff all over the layout. This is everything that wasn't stuck down. This is the, I've tried to repair it. It's very difficult. Yeah, we'll do something with that. The fascination with mines is, of course, I grew up within a spit of Bethanger Colliery, which is why this one. Yes. Well, again, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the mystery of the shelf layout, and see you next time. Thanks for watching.